What if I told you that the best sign of a great day on the ice is catching absolutely nothing for the first hour? It sounds wrong, doesn't it? Today, we are talking about why the most seasoned ice anglers don't panic when the bite is slow. In fact, deep down, they secretly hope for it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand a core strategy that separates the guys who go home with a bucket from those who go home with just a cold. This is about more than just patience. It's about gathering intelligence under the ice, and it might be the number one reason your spots aren't producing consistently. So, let me ask you this, and be honest. What's the first thing you do when you don't get a bite in 20 minutes? Do you start moving? Let me know in the comments. For years, we've all been taught the same thing. If you're not on fish, move. The old-timers called it not wasting time on dead water. It makes sense on the surface. Why sit there if nothing's biting? We see pictures online of instant success, guys pulling up fish 2 minutes after drilling a hole, and it creates this intense pressure to find the action immediately. So what do most of us do? We get into this frantic cycle. We drill a hole, drop a line, give it maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and if nothing happens, we're off, drilling another hole 50 feet away. We call it hole hopping or running and gunning. We do this because we believe the key to success is covering as much water as possible to stumble upon a school of active fish. But what if that entire approach, that frantic search for an instant bite, is actually the very thing holding you back? First, let's talk about the big mindset shift. Most anglers approach the ice with a hunter's mentality. Their only goal is to find and catch a fish as quickly as possible. Every second without a bite feels like a failure. The best anglers, however, switch to an information gatherer's mentality for that first hour. Their primary goal is not to catch a fish, but to understand the piece of structure they are on. Imagine yourself on a new lake. The hunter drills a hole, sees no fish on the flasher, and immediately gets anxious. The information gatherer drills a hole, ignores the lack of fish, and instead focuses on learning. What is the depth? What is the bottom made of? Are there any weeds? He's building a mental map. This calm, methodical approach removes the pressure and allows for clear thinking. The hunt for a fish can begin only after the mission to gather data is complete. It's a total reversal of what most people do. This brings us to the most important tool for the job. That first hour is for your electronics, not your fishing rod. Yes, you'll have a line in the water, but you shouldn't be staring at your rod tip waiting for a twitch. All of your attention should be glued to your flasher, your sonar, or your graph. The goal isn't even to mark fish yet. The goal is to interpret the environment. As you drop your transducer in a new hole, you're looking for signs of life beyond a big red arch. You're trying to determine bottom composition. A thick, solid red line means a hard bottom, like rock or gravel. A softer, thinner, or even a double echo line indicates mud or silt. You're looking for the slightest depth changes. You are using that sonar beam to paint a detailed picture of the world below your feet, a world that is invisible to the impatient angler who only cares about seeing a fish on the screen. Your electronics are your underwater eyes, and the first hour is when you let them adjust to the dark. Now let's bust a huge myth. We've all heard it. No marks, no fish. This is one of the most misleading phrases in ice fishing. The truth is, during low light periods like early morning, or when a pressure system has them in a funk, predator fish like walleye, big perch, and pike can be completely glued to the bottom. They become almost invisible to sonar. They won't show up as those classic beautiful arches you see on TV. They might appear as a slight thickening of the bottom line, or not at all. If you drill a hole over a perfect rock pile and see nothing, the amateur says, "Nobody's home," and leaves. The pro says, "This is exactly what I expect to see right now." He knows the fish are there, lying in ambush, conserving energy. He understands that the absence of marks in a high percentage area is often a neutral sign, not a negative one. He's not looking for active fish. He's looking for the habitat that will hold fish when they decide to become active. Let's dive deeper into reading the bottom. This is a skill you develop over time, and a slow first hour is the perfect classroom. It's called the hard versus soft test, and you can do it with the jig on the end of your line. After checking the depth on your electronics, you engage your reel and let your lure free fall. Pay close attention to the moment it hits the bottom. If you feel a sharp thud or a tick that travels right up your line and through your rod, you've hit a hard bottom. This could be rock, gravel, or sand. It's a prime area for walleye and perch. Now, if the lure hits and feels mushy, with no distinct impact, like it just stopped falling, you've landed in soft mud, or silt. This is often a better area for invertebrates, and can be a feeding zone for crappies or other species. In that first hour, you can test a dozen holes and quickly determine that you're on the edge where a soft mud basin meets a hard rock reef. That transition line is a fish highway. You found it not by catching a fish, but by feeling for it. Another critical task for this golden hour is finding the hidden ledges and drop-offs. We're not always talking about massive cliff-like structures. On many lakes, the most productive spots are incredibly subtle. A change in depth of just 1 or 2 feet can be enough to concentrate an entire population of fish. The impatient angler will never find these spots. He drills a few random holes and moves on. The methodical angler uses the first hour to drill a grid. He might drill 10 or 12 holes in a specific pattern before he ever drops a line. For example, he'll drill 3 holes in a line going north, then move over 20 feet and drill 3 more. He uses his flasher in each hole to build a precise contour map. He might find that a subtle inside turn, a small point extending from the shore, or a slight depression exists. These are the spots that don't show up on any map, and they are the spots that hold fish all winter long. He sacrifices 60 minutes of potential fishing time to find a spot that will pay off for the next 10 years. Let's talk about the search for green weeds. Under the ice, a healthy weed bed is an oasis. It produces oxygen, it provides cover from predators, and it holds a buffet of aquatic insects and tiny bait fish. But not all weeds are created equal. As winter progresses, many weed beds die off, turn brown, and actually start consuming oxygen, which repels fish. The key is finding the living green stuff. A slow first hour gives you time for this investigation. You can use an underwater camera to quickly check for weed color and health. But even without a camera, you can get clues. After drilling a hole, check the slush and the blades of your auger. Are there chopped up green fragments? That's a great sign. If all you see are brown decaying pieces, you know this area is likely dead for the winter. Taking the time to drill a few holes along a weed line and verify that it's healthy is far more productive than fishing the brown dead edge of it, just because you got a lucky bite there last year. Ultimately, the number one goal of this reconnaissance mission is to find the bait. As the saying goes, if you find the food, you'll find the fish. Game fish like walleye and pike are slaves to their stomachs. Their location is almost entirely dictated by the location of their prey, whether that's perch, shiners, or ciscos. During that quiet first hour, you can focus your electronics exclusively on this task. You aren't distracted by chasing a single big mark that might be a non-committal walleye. Instead, you are looking for those faint flickering signals on your sonar that indicate a school of bait fish. They might look like a cloud or a wispy ball suspended in the water column. Finding a massive bait ball on a piece of structure is the ice fishing equivalent of finding a buried treasure chest. You now know, with almost 100% certainty, that predator fish will visit this spot at some point during the day. You found the restaurant. Now you just have to wait for the customers to arrive. While you're busy analyzing your spot, you can employ a powerful tool, the dead stick. This is a second rod that you set up to fish passively. You aren't actively jigging it. You just set it up in a holder with a live minnow hooked lightly under the dorsal fin, suspended a foot or so off the bottom. The purpose of this rod is not necessarily to catch a bunch of fish. Its purpose is to be an alarm system. While you are drilling holes, checking depths, and studying your sonar, that dead stick is your spy. Big, cruising predators are often spooked by aggressive jigging, but they can't resist an easy meal like a struggling minnow. If that dead stick suddenly bends over and the drag starts screaming, it tells you something incredibly valuable. It confirms that active predators are using this area as a travel or feeding route. It's the ultimate validation that your initial data gathering has put you in the right zone. It's a passive test that provides an active, undeniable clue. One of the biggest secrets of consistently successful anglers is their deep understanding of feeding windows. Fish do not feed 24 hours a day. On most bodies of water, there are very specific, predictable times when the majority of feeding activity occurs. This is often tied to changes in light, like sunrise and sunset, or sometimes it's a midday bite. The amateur angler arrives at the lake at dawn and expects fish to be biting ravenously. When they aren't, he gets frustrated and starts running all over the lake. The pro knows that the prime time on this particular lake might not be until 9:30 in the morning. So, what does he do from 7:30 to 9:30? He uses that time to meticulously position himself on the absolute best spot on the spot. He's not wasting the prime feeding window searching for fish. He's using the non-prime window to prepare for it. When the dinner bell finally rings, he's already sitting at the head of the table. If you're fishing on a river system or a reservoir with even a subtle flow, mapping the current is non-negotiable. Current dictates everything. It positions bait, it creates ambush points for predators, and it forms seams where fast and slow water meet. These seams are fish magnets, but you can't see the current from above the ice. A slow first hour is the perfect opportunity to understand it. Drop your jig down and watch how it behaves. Does it hang perfectly straight, or does it get swept downstream? How heavy of a lure do you need just to maintain contact with the bottom? By doing this in several holes, you can identify where the main current channel is, and more importantly, where the current breaks are. These are spots behind a rock pile, on the inside of a river bend, or in a deeper hole where fish can rest and wait for food to be delivered to them. This information is a game changer that you can only get by taking your time. Here's something most people overlook. Negative cues are just as valuable as positive ones. The process of elimination is a powerful, efficient strategy. Let's say you spend your first hour investigating a long, tapering point that looks perfect on the map. You drill your grid of holes and you discover it's a completely barren, flat, muddy bottom, with no depth changes, no weeds, and absolutely no signs of bait. You haven't had a single bite. The amateur angler sees this as a wasted hour and a total failure. The professional sees it as a huge success. You have now, with complete confidence, eliminated a large piece of water. You know not to waste another minute there for the rest of the day. You've gathered conclusive evidence that this is not the spot. This allows you to make a major move to a completely different part of the lake with purpose and conviction, rather than just wandering around guessing. Let's contrast two types of anglers, the hole hopper and the area dissector. The hole hopper embodies the classic impatient approach. He runs and guns, drilling a hole, fishing for 5 minutes, and moving on. He might cover 200 holes in a day. He is hoping to randomly drop his lure on the head of an aggressive biting fish. He might get lucky and catch one or two. The area dissector, on the other hand, chooses one high percentage piece of structure and spends his first hour taking it apart piece by piece. He drills his grid, maps the contours, checks the bottom content, and looks for bait. He might only fish 20 holes all day, but he knows every single detail about them. He is confident that fish will eventually use this area. The hole hopper is playing the lottery. The area dissector is playing chess, patiently setting up his pieces for a checkmate when the feeding window opens. Think about the sheer chaos of arriving at a spot. You're driving your truck or ATV, dragging a heavy sled, and then firing up a loud vibrating auger that screams as it cuts through the ice. It's a violent intrusion into the underwater world. Any fish in the immediate vicinity are either going to hunker down in fear or bolt for safety. The impatient angler immediately drops his line into this disturbed, chaotic environment and expects a bite. It rarely happens. A slow first hour provides a crucial cool-down period. It allows the spot to settle down. The vibrations dissipate, the churned-up slush settles, and the fish that were spooked slowly regain their confidence and return to the area. By the time you've finished your reconnaissance and the area has quieted down, the fish have forgotten you were even there. The patient angler essentially lets the fish come back to him, instead of trying to fish for them while they are still running away. A quiet first hour also gives you the chance to do some reconnaissance of your own, above the ice. Instead of being hyper-focused on your own line, you can take a moment to observe what's happening around you. Look at the other anglers on the lake. Are they gathered in one specific area? That could be a community spot worth avoiding, or it could be a clue. Are they moving around a lot, or are they staying put? If everyone is hole hopping frantically, it probably means the bite is slow everywhere, so there's no reason for you to panic. If one guy is sitting still and you see him pull up a fish, make a mental note of his location, depth, and the type of structure he might be on. You're not looking to crowd him, but to gather clues about the daily pattern. You can learn a lot about the mood of the lake by simply watching the behavior of other fishermen from a distance. Never underestimate the power of the mental game in fishing. The confidence factor is huge. Think about the angler who is hole hopping with no success. After an hour, he's frustrated, full of doubt and starting to second guess everything. He's cold, tired of drilling, and ready to go home. Now, think about the angler who has spent that same hour methodically dissecting his spot. He hasn't had a bite either, but he is overflowing with confidence. He has confirmed he is on a perfect rock-to-mud transition in 18 feet of water with a huge school of bait suspended just off the edge. He knows, with every fiber of his being, that he is in the right place. He is no longer hoping to get a bite. He is expecting it. This confidence allows him to fish more effectively, to focus on his presentation, and to stay patient and ready for when the action finally starts. Let's look at a classic case study, the walleye transition. It's first light, and you set up on a shallow rocky reef that tops out at 15 feet, surrounded by a 30-foot basin. You spend the first hour drilling holes, marking the edges of the reef, and confirming the presence of baitfish on your sonar. You don't get a single bite. The amateur angler would have left 30 minutes ago, but you know that at this time of day, the walleyes are often still roaming that deep basin, inactive. As the sun gets a little higher in the sky, it triggers a behavioral change. They begin to move up onto the reef to feed on the perch and baitfish that live there. Because you did your homework, you are already set up on the sharpest breaking edge of that reef. You are in the perfect ambush spot. Suddenly, your sonar lights up, and for the next hour, you have some of the fastest fishing of your life. You didn't chase the fish, you intercepted them. Here's another common scenario. The roaming perch school. Jumbo perch are notorious for being constantly on the move. They travel in massive schools like herds of grazers searching for food across large mud flats or along weed lines. You can set up on what seems like a desolate, lifeless flat and see absolutely nothing for the first hour. An impatient angler would be long gone. But you've used that hour to confirm you are in a good area, maybe a spot with a few scattered rocks on the mud, or an area where you found some freshwater shrimp. You stick with it. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, your flasher turns into a Christmas tree. The school has arrived. You might catch 10 or 15 big perch in as many minutes. Then, just as quickly, they're gone. The key to this success was not finding the fish themselves, but finding their dining room and simply waiting for them to arrive for their reservation. A slow, methodical start is also the perfect time to fine-tune your presentation. When fish are biting aggressively, you can get away with a lot. But when they're neutral or negative, tiny details make all the difference. With no pressure to catch a fish immediately, you can use that first hour to experiment. Drop your lure and watch it on the sonar. Is it falling too fast and aggressively for the mood of the fish? Maybe you need to switch to a lighter jig. Is the color blending in too much with the background? Try a brighter chartreuse or orange lure. Are you using a full minnow when just a minnow head would be a smaller, more tempting snack? You can work through these variables one by one, calmly and logically. By the time the fish do become active, you have already dialed in the exact presentation they are looking for. Now we have to address the trap of the lucky fish. We've all seen it. A guy shows up, drills one random hole in the middle of nowhere, and immediately pulls up a huge fish. His buddies all rush over and drill holes around him. For the angler who caught it, this can actually be a curse. He is now mentally anchored to that one random spot. He's convinced he's found a secret honey hole. In reality, he likely just got lucky and crossed paths with a single roaming fish. He will now waste the rest of his day fishing that unproductive water, trying to replicate a random event. Meanwhile, you, with your slow and steady approach, have been gathering data. While he's stuck on his lucky spot, You are setting up on a high percentage piece of structure, ready for the real, predictable bite to begin. Finally, how do you know when a slow start is actually a bad sign? When is it time to pull the plug and make a big move? This is where the information you gathered becomes so critical. If you have spent a full hour, or maybe even 90 minutes, diligently searching an area and all the data you collect is negative, then it's time to go. For example, if you've confirmed the bottom is a featureless mud flat, you can't find any bait on your electronics, you haven't seen a single weed, and your dead stick hasn't been touched, you can now make the decision to leave with 100% confidence. You aren't leaving because you're frustrated or impatient. You are leaving because you have conducted a thorough investigation and the evidence shows that this spot is unlikely to produce. The slow start didn't just tell you where to fish, it told you with certainty where not to fish. So, the secret is out. That dreaded silent first hour on the ice isn't a failure, it's not a sign of a bad day. In the right hands, it's the most important, productive and valuable part of your entire trip. The big twist is that you have to shift your goal. Stop trying to catch a fish right now and start trying to put yourself in the absolute best position to catch fish all day long. Once you make that mental switch, everything changes. You'll stop chasing random bites and start dissecting a lake with the precision of a surgeon. You'll fish with more confidence, more purpose, and ultimately, you'll have way more success. The next time you see a guy frantically drilling 50 holes in the first 60 minutes, just smile to yourself. You'll know he's playing checkers while you're playing chess. Thank you so much for watching. If this video changed how you think about your next trip, do me a favor and hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more tips that actually work. Now I want to hear from you. What's the longest you've ever waited on a single spot before it turned into an epic bite? Share your story in the comments below.